Okay, so we're gonna jump into the first exercise, but before we do that, as I always like to do, I like to think about the title of the text or the lesson, because this is going to be giving you a pretty good idea of what we're going to be talking about. So, I want to start by asking if anybody can provide me with a definition, either if you look for it on the dictionary or if you have your own perspective of what this means. Um, who would like to share with the class what manners is? Can you guys provide me with a definition? I would rather you to speak to the microphone instead of sending it in the chat. I would like to hear a couple of perspectives. Manners. It has a double N. What are those? Okay, social conduct. Very good. So that's one definition. Does anybody have any other definitions? Modales. Okay, very good. Okay, so at least this, I think this gives us a starting point. Okay, so thank you, Liz, and thank you, uh, Oscar, for sharing your ideas. So basically, manners is the way that you behave and in which um is acceptable to society, right? So, for example, good manners is like good behavior, something that is polite, at least to the standards of the society. Now, you have to understand that manners can change from culture to culture, right? So, what some people consider good manners in our country, maybe on the other side of the world is going to be offensive or it's not going to be considered appropriate. So every culture has some differences regarding the manners subject. And today we are going to have a little introduction that proves that. So let's move to the next slide. I'm going to give you a few ideas, and then I'm going to ask you to participate in the Nearpod link. So I don't know if everybody was here when I shared it, but I'm sharing the link in the chat one more time, and I already did that um, through WhatsApp. So here are some statements, and you're going to try to help me based on our culture or the culture of your family, maybe the culture of your circle. Are these true for you and your country or your circle, or are these false? So we're going to read them, and of course, have your dictionary at hand, because there are going to be probably some words that we uh, do not know or are new for our vocabulary. So I would like us to do some research. And this is before we start answering these questions or statements, replying to these statements. So we have 12 statements. I'm going to read them all, but I want you to pay attention to some of the words. If there are words that you do not know or that you need to research, uh, just either put it in the chat. We can do research together, or just maybe uh, after the reading, we can. share with the class some of the things that you have find out. Okay. So, for example, let's see, the word barefoot. Okay. That might be a word that not everybody knows. So I would like you to consider words like this for you to investigate a little. Okay. So are these statements true in your country? Choose true or false. And that's going to be our next exercise. But first, we're going to read them. Number one, eating food on a subway or bus is bad manners. Okay. Is that considered true in our country? Is bad manners eating in the bus or eating in the subway? So you'll decide that. Number two, it's rude to cut in line. Number three, you should try to keep your voice down in public. Is that true for our country or for your culture? Number four, you can offend people by not bowing or shaking hands when you meet. So just consider those. Number five, people might stare at you for walking around barefoot. Number six, having an argument in public is considered bad manners. Number seven, it's impolite to walk into someone's home without taking off your shoes. Eight, showing affection in public, like holding hands or kissing, is inappropriate. Number nine, you should try not to stand too close to people. It's considered rude. Number 10, it's acceptable not to tip cab drivers. Number 11, you should be careful not to point at people. And number 12, it's customary to bargain with street vendors to get something cheaper, but it's not acceptable to do this in a store. So, are these statements true in your country? You can select true or false. Again, there are certain words that we probably will need to research a bit before we answer, but we're going to go one by one. And inside of Nearpod, you will have to select the answer, okay? Now, there is no right or wrong answer. This is just your opinion. Okay. So I want to hear your opinion. So this is not going to be a quiz. It's going to be more like a survey. Okay. So I want to know what people think about this, right? So if you consider that this is true for your country, then you select true, and we're going to see the graphic and we're going to see like the tendency of the class, right? What is the general way of thinking from this class. So let's see here. Let's go with the first one. You have 45 seconds. Why? Because you don't have to write anything. You just have to select true or false. So it's almost instantaneous. Okay, so I'm going to show what is the way of thinking from the class. So eating food on a subway or bus is considered bad manners. 40% of the class answered yes is bad manners, and other 40% said, well, that's not that bad. And of course, there's another percentage of people who did not participate. So we are going to again, this is just your opinion and is based, of course, on our experience and your circle. So some of these things may be true for some people and not true for others. Right? We have the idea for the first one. What about the second one? Great. So we have a majority of people answering, and you say, guys, it's rude to cut in line. Okay? Perfect. It's rude to cut in line. What does that mean? Cut in line means colarse. That's what it means. So is it rude? ¿Es descortés hacerlo? It is. It is very rude in our culture. I don't know if in any culture this is considered acceptable. I'm not sure. I don't know much about other cultures, but at least in the cultures that I know, uh, cutting in line is not acceptable at all. What about the next one? Hey, very good. Thank you for your opinion. You should keep your voice down in public. Yes, I think that's pretty acceptable. Keep your voice down. That means not laughing too loud or not screaming or yelling in public. That doesn't is not considered acceptable. Let's go with the next one. You can offend someone by not bowing or shaking hands when you meet. Remember that we're talking about our culture, okay? Your country, your culture. Okay, great. Thank you for participating. And some people say it is true, and some people say it is not true. So I'm going to explain myself. You can offend someone by not bowing or shaking hands when you meet. So it depends, I guess, on your circle, right? In certain cultures, you do have to bow, which is inclinarse o hacer una reverencia, or shake hands. In other cultures, you don't have to shake hands, right? And it's basically just like some sort of thing of personal space. Um, Again, just opinions. Let's see here. People might stare at you for walking around barefoot. Barefoot significa descalzo. Okay? So people might stare, quedársete viendo. People might stare at you for walking around barefoot. Okay, time is over. Okay, what about our culture? I think in our culture, this might be true for walking around barefoot. Puede ser que en nuestra cultura sí sea cierto, ¿verdad? Que se nos pueden quedar viendo. Hay algunas personas y algunas otras culturas en las que no. I'm thinking about a place. I was watching a video a few weeks ago where someone was just pointing out how common it is to see people in Australia going to the supermarket barefoot. I mean, they are not wearing anything. They're just walking like that through the supermarket and through the malls, etc. That for them is completely normal. I don't think that for our culture is completely normal. Imagine that you're walking Ayala or Miraflores or whatever is your mall of preference, and you find, I don't know, 100 people walking barefoot. I think that you will probably feel that something is off, right? Because it's not what we normally see. That's our culture again. Number six, having an argument in this context, argument is like having a fight, right? Not to the fists, but it's, yes, kind of verbal kind of fight, right? Having an argument in public is considered bad manners. I would say yes. I think that these are things that you need to deal with at home in private. But that's my opinion. Okay. So everybody participated. Thank you very much. Having an argument in public is considered bad manners. I guess that it depends sometimes. If if you have an argument that is too loud, as we saw in maybe an item before, it might be bad manners, right? You're interrupting other people's activities, so that's not considered, at least in a culture, something acceptable. It's impolite to walk into someone's home without taking your shoes. This means you're going to offend somebody if you do not remove your shoes when you enter their house. I don't know how many people you know, but I've seen people that this is like the normal practice. You enter the house and you remove your shoes. But is that the common thing in our country? Okay, good. So, yeah, we think this is false. At least in our country, in our culture, we do not remove our shoes as the normal rule, right? There are going to be certain families that probably practice this or uh, people who practice this in our country, but I wouldn't say that is the normal practice. More, showing affection, and when I say affection, there is the clarification. Holding hands or kissing is inappropriate. What do you think? Based on your experience with the culture, do you think that this is inappropriate? Like showing affection or holding hands or kissing, is that inappropriate? So go ahead and answer that, and I'll love to see your answer. Okay, time is almost over. Perfect. So we have 60% of the class saying, yes, it is inappropriate, and another 40% it is saying, yeah, that's false. I think it depends. I think it depends on the type of affection and maybe how intense it is. Because if you're making feel other people awkward, probably that's definitely inappropriate, right? But maybe holding hands, I don't think that our culture is too heavy on that. Number nine, you should try not to stand too close to people. It's considered rude. Ojo, la palabra rude no significa rudo, ¿verdad? La palabra rudo en español no tiene el mismo significado que creemos que tiene en inglés. Rude es descortés, es abusivo, right? Impolite in another way of saying it. Rudo a veces en español lo consideramos como tosco, como alguien así, eh, como fuerte, como medio macizo, ¿verdad? So that's rude in Spanish, rudo. But they're not the same thing. Even though the words are similar, this means impolite. Es impolite. It's considered impolite. Mm, perfect. Right. So true, 60% of the people say it's true, and it's 40% say it's false. Um, I guess that it depends on the relationship, right? Because if you're very new for that person, like just you recently met them, um, you're not going to be standing too close or hugging them, or I mean, it's not the normal behavior. But I think that Latin American countries are very affectionate. So that's what other cultures say about us. They feel like the Latin American culture is more towards hugging, toward towards like maybe physical contact, et cetera. And there are other cultures where, I mean, distance is the priority. Um, two more, three more. The word tip here is propina, dar propina. So it's acceptable not to tip cab drivers. So in our say this is saying in our country it's acceptable not to dar propina a los taxistas o a los del Uber. It's acceptable. So this is because there are certain countries in which tips are very like polemic um kind of topic. So I think that there's a lot of divided opinions when talking about tipping other people or in different services like in restaurants. Okay, so false. I think well it depends where you are, right? There are certain places in which you have to tip, right? I was giving you this example I think a few days ago regarding the tips in restaurants in Mexico or tips in restaurants in the United States. So it depends on the country, basically, right? Because here, I think in Latin American cultures, especially Guatemala, we normally do not have a tipping culture unless that is already included in a bill, right? But on any other situation, we normally do not tip. I think that there are other cultures where tipping is really important and even offensive if you do not do it. You should be careful not to point at people. When I say point, is like I señalar, right? So ese de ahí. Like I don't know if that was your case, but when I was little, like it was something bigger when we were growing up, right? So people say, grandma say, "Oh, you shouldn't point at people, right? It's rude. It's bad manners." I don't know if that happens in every household, but at least that was in mine. That happened in mine. So I would say yes, you should be careful not to point at people based on my culture, but I would love to hear your opinions. Great. Okay, good. So I think that in this case we all agree. That's fine. Last exercise of this survey poll kind of exercise. So it's customary to bargain. Bargain is regatear, if you want to use a very Guatemalan word, to bargain with street vendors to get something cheaper, but it's not considered acceptable to do this at the store. For example, it's considered customary to bargain with people in the market, but not acceptable if you go to Walmart, for example. You go to Walmart and you want to bargain with the cashier, right? That's not acceptable. So what do you think? Is that true for our country? I would say it is. It is true for our country. Uh, but I don't know if there are any other cultures or the culture in the country or the place that you live in where you can do this uh, in a big store. Or maybe the bargain culture is not part of your thing. That's also possible. So true. Customary to bargain. Bargain, customary is acostumbrado. That's what this means. It's customary to bargain with street vendors, con los vendedores de la calle, ¿verdad? Se acostumbra a negociar o a regatear para obtener algo más barato, pero no es aceptable para hacerlo en una tienda, right? If you go to Siman or if you go to Samaco, you're not able to bargain, right? That's not considered acceptable. Um, so that's it. That's it for the very first exercise. So there are other behaviors that you probably realize that are inside of cultures. And what we normally do is that we refer to this as acceptable things to do or not acceptable things to do. So we are we're going to skip this part, but I just wanted to point out that if you ever have to talk about this topic with anybody else, and you're talking about manners and what's customary and what's not customary in your culture, you can use this phrase, right? You can say it's acceptable to do this and do that, right? Or it is not acceptable to do this or to do that. And we're going to use that knowledge to talk about the following things. I have one additional exercise that I want you to help me with. And this is an exercise of multiple selection. So I'm giving you several options, and you will have to select the one that you think is correct for the context. And this is very similar to the ones that we just read. So some of them are going to sound familiar. For example, in number one, you will have to select the correct choices, right? What's the right choice for each of them? And then we're going to try to answer if these are true in our country, right? So, for example, cutting in line is bad manners, or cut in line is bad manners. Which one sounds better? Which one is the right one? Okay, and are these true for you? You might offend someone by standing too close, or you might offend someone stand too close. You have to select one of the two and decide if these are if this sentence, the one that you're answering or that you are working on at that moment, is true for you. Number three, you can offend your host by not taking off your shoes or by not to take your shoes. Number four, it's polite bow when you meet someone, or it's polite to bow when you meet someone. Remember, bow es hacer una reverencia, así como this is to bow, inclinarse. It's customary not to tip cab drivers, or it's customary not tip cab drivers. Okay, so you get it, right? So you have two options. You eliminate the one that is not right. You just leave the sentence, which is the right sentence. And then at the end of the sentence, just add a comment if you think this is a sentence that is true for your country. This time you do have to write. This is not like a multiple selection kind of exercise. The traditional way, I'm giving you multiple selections, but you do have to write the sentence. So remember that I always recommend to copy and paste and just delete or erase the one that you think is true. So please go ahead and access to this exercise. You can scroll down. No sé si en su pantalla sale todo, pero a veces la pantalla es muy grande y no salen todas las oraciones. Solo tienen que scroll down y van a poder ver el resto. Okay, so you have to be able to see all five. 30 seconds before the time is over. Perfect. Time's over. So thank you for sending your answers. I'm going to be posting some of the ones that I see arriving. And okay, cut in line is bad manners. You might offend someone by stand too close. You can offend your host by not to take off your shoes. It's polite to bow when you meet someone. It's customary not to tip cab drivers. Okay, I'm just showing the answers. I'm not correcting anything right now because that's the next step. In the next slide, I'm gonna talk about correcting things. Cut in line is bad manners. You might offend someone. You can offend your host by not to take. It's polite to bow down. Okay, I'm checking another one. I think that we're not decided on this one. You might offend someone by I just see the copy and paste. I don't see the corrections, I think. Let's see here. Cutting in line is bad manners. You might offend someone by standing. Okay, very good, very good. Cutting in line is bad manners. By standing, you can offend your host but not taking off. Like to bow down. Bow down. Okay, perfect. Good. I appreciate it. Now let's go ahead and have a short discussion on why this is like it is, and we're going to talk about this part over here. I I probably I'm assuming that you realize what's happening here, okay? And this is a moment in which we are going to have to decide if we are using one verb form or one form of the word in another. Okay. For example, here we're trying to decide if we're using just the word cut and cutting. Here, if we're using standing or stand or taking or to take. So This is something that we call uh, gerunds and infinitives, if you remember that topic, right? So gerunds is ing, and infinitives is when you have the word to. Okay, perfect. So the lesson teaches the verb ing as the subject of a sentence or as the object of a preposition. No sé si se habían dado cuenta, pero nosotros podemos usar gerundios como sujetos. No siempre tienen que ser verbos. Los habíamos visto como verbos, sí, ¿verdad? Como por ejemplo, um, I considered taking math, for example. Entonces, aquí tenemos dos verbos juntos. El segundo verbo tenía que cambiar, ¿verdad? Porque si solo lo dejo como take, no sirve, ¿verdad? I consider take math, no sirve. Pero tendría que decir I consider to take math o I consider taking math. Y aquí me he decidido por el gerundio. Estoy usándolo como verbo. Pero en las oraciones de hoy, si ustedes se dan cuenta, no estamos utilizando necesariamente estas palabras como verbos. Miren las oraciones al inicio. Dice, eating food, voy a remarcarlos. Eating food on a subway or bus is bad manners. Eating food. ¿Ok? Noten esto. Eating food. Vamos a ver, aquí hay otra. Having an argument. Showing affection. Uh-huh. To bargain. Okay, so I'm going to use these first. So we can use gerunds as subjects. Eso es algo que hacemos también en el español. También utilizamos verbos en el sujeto, solo que normalmente no, o sea, no lo estamos pensando todo el tiempo, ¿verdad? No lo estamos pensando. Entonces, por ejemplo, esta oración la podemos traducir como comer en público es de mala educación. Si se dan cuenta, es una oración que en español estamos usando una palabra como el verbo comer. We're using the word eat o comer en español, ¿verdad? Para referirnos al sujeto, ¿verdad? Entonces estamos hablando de una situación. También eso puede pasar en inglés. Eating in public is bad manners. So, cuando nosotros tenemos esos casos en los que tenemos el verbo como un sujeto, la forma ideal es utilizar el gerundio, o sea, el ing. Por ejemplo, si alguien dice, yo voy a usar la forma del infinitivo, ¿verdad? Porque estoy traduciendo el español del español al inglés. To eat in public is bad manners. Si alguien lo traduce así medio literal, probablemente le funcione, ¿verdad? Y tal vez todavía esta oración tenga algo de sentido cuando lo traducimos literalmente del inglés al español. Pero si nosotros somos honestos, esto en el inglés no funciona. En el inglés no podemos usar este tipo de expresiones al inicio de una oración. To eat in public is bad manners. Aunque me suene medio lógico en español, esto en inglés no funciona. ¿Ok? Entonces vamos a utilizar el ing, o sea, los verbos con gerundio, cuando lo vamos a utilizar en situaciones en las que el sujeto está tomando esa forma. ¿Ok? So let's start with that. Eating in public is bad manners. Eating in public is bad manners. Aquí está. Eating in public, not to eat in public. Lo mismo pasa con la negación, ¿verdad? Por ejemplo, si yo digo no saludar, no hacer reverencia o no dar la mano, es de mala educación o es eh, impolite. Pasa lo mismo, solo que la forma de negación en este caso es not shaking. Not shaking hands is impolite. ¿Ok? No vayamos a confundirnos. Acá, estos verbos nos están ayudando a poder formar el sujeto de la oración, porque eso es lo que quiero comunicar, que el comer en público es de malos modales, o el no saludar, el no dar la mano es descortés. Eso es lo que significa eso. Entonces, esos son formas en las que el sujeto se está valiendo de verbos para poder explicar lo que quiere decir. Entonces, esto no tiene nada que ver con que sea presente, con que sea pasado, nada, ¿verdad? Estamos utilizando algunos verbos como recurso para poder explicar. Seguramente ustedes ya lo notaron y la mayoría de ustedes seguro no necesitó ninguna traducción así demasiado compleja como para poder entender estas oraciones. Algunas palabras tal vez tuvimos que buscar, pero en general las entendimos perfectamente. Ahora lo que buscamos es que podamos producirlas nosotros cuando sea que tengamos que hablar. Y eso entonces nos va a llevar a considerar esto. When you're using a verb as a subject, you have to use the gerund form, okay? The ing form. Eating in public is bad manners. Not shaking in hands is impolite. Hay otras veces en las que los verbos no necesariamente van a ser usados como sujetos, pero sí van a quedar después de preposiciones. Les recuerdo cuáles son las preposiciones. Las preposiciones son palabras como, por ejemplo, em, by, for, at, in, on, etcétera. Esas son preposiciones, esas palabritas que a veces utilizamos, ¿verdad? Para mencionar, por ejemplo, las preposiciones del lugar, está adentro, afuera, detrás de, delante de, etcétera. Esas son prepositions, prepositions. Entonces, aquí estamos agregando algunas otras, ¿verdad? By y for van a ser las prepositions que vamos a utilizar. Los verbos que estamos justamente discutiendo en este momento son el verbo eat y el verbo wear. ¿En dónde quedaron en la oración? Quedaron detrás de la preposición. Entonces, cuando están después de las preposiciones, lo ideal es utilizar el ing y no el infinitivo. Es decir, si yo dijera aquí, you can't offend people by to eat in public, se oye raro y se oye raro porque en inglés esa oración jamás la han oído ustedes, ¿verdad? Pero sí hemos probablemente oído algo como by eating in public. You can offend people by eating in public. Entonces, esto se traduce como tú puedes ofender a las personas al comer en público. That's one way of translating this. Another way of providing example for this case specifically. People might stare at you for not wearing shoes. ING, ¿verdad? No vamos a usar el to wear shoes. People might stare at you for not to wear shoes is not probable, is not correct in English. It's more towards the ing, ¿ok? Cada vez que tengan preposiciones ya las van a ir reconociendo. By, for, on, in, under, up, etcétera. Todas esas pueden ser prepositions. Y esas, si llevan un verbo atrás, ese verbo lo vas a conjugar como si fuera un gerundio, es decir, que tiene un ing. It has to be a gerund. Okay, so here you have two clear cases in which you can use this as a gerund. Tal vez no lo habíamos considerado, pero sí, los verbos pueden quedar en el sujeto, no son la acción de la que estamos hablando, ¿verdad? No es el verbo de acción de la oración. Aquí el verbo de acción de la oración es el verbo to be, ¿verdad? Comer en público es de mala educación. Es el verbo cero estar, el verbo de esta oración. Solo nos estamos valiendo de otras palabras para poder explicar nuestra idea. Let's go to another scenario. ¿Ok? ¿Cuándo podemos utilizar, por ejemplo, el infinitive? El infinitive es cuando nosotros le ponemos la palabra to antes del verbo, ¿verdad? ¿Cuándo lo usamos? Cuando nosotros estamos hablando, por ejemplo, estamos dando algunas instrucciones como muy claras. Por ejemplo, it bad manners to eat in public. Es de mala educación comer en público. Siempre que usemos it's para iniciar una instrucción o una idea, entonces, si va a quedar en esa oración it's un verbo, ese verbo vamos a tener que usarlo perdón, en infinitivo, el to. It's bad manners to eat in public. Es de mala educación comer en público. It's impolite not to shake hands. Shake hands es este gesto, ¿verdad? Dar la mano. So, it's impolite. Vean que empezó con it's. Entonces, si estamos en duda, ¿verdad? Si aquí deberíamos de usar un gerundio, o sea, el ing or the infinitive, well, pay attention how the sentence starting. If it's starting with it's, then it is definitely an infinitive. And the position of not, we're gonna have to pay attention to this. Not precedes the word it negates. Suena raro, pero en realidad, en este caso, la palabra not dice precede, o es decir, va antes, pues not va antes de la palabra a la que niega. Veamos si eso es cierto. Be careful not to point at people. You can offend people by not bowing. Tiene sentido, ¿verdad? Entonces aquí no como en otras ocasiones, ¿verdad? Hemos visto que el not a veces tiene un lugar en particular y le hacemos algunos cambios, por ejemplo, le ponemos un auxiliar y estas cosas, ¿verdad? Aquí no. Simplemente al poner la negación adelante del verbo, ¿verdad? Ya está funcionando como esa negación. Nuevamente, aquí esta, por ejemplo, es una oración imperativa. Dice, be careful not to point at people. Ten cuidado de no señalar a las personas. Es como cuando una mamá le está regañando a su hijo, por eso es una oración imperativa. Be careful not to point out to people. Aquí no vamos a decir be careful, don't point out to people. ¿Ok? No es el mismo tema. Aquí estamos hablando de una forma más avanzada, digamos así, ¿verdad? De un presente. Be careful not to point at people. You can offend people by not bowing. Puedes ofender a personas al no hacer una reverencia o al no inclinar. Notice the position of not. Dice, la posición de not precede o va antes de la palabra a la que niega. Si estábamos hablando de inclinarnos y queremos decir al no inclinarnos sería by not bowing. Si queremos hablar de señalar a la gente, pero queremos decir no señalar a la gente, not to point out. ¿Ok? Solo para que lo tomen en cuenta también. Case number three. Case number three. Uh, in this case, we're going to talk about more about the use of it. We have the structure and we have the use. Okay. So use, verb ing is often used as a subject. Eating in public is bad manners. The act of eating, ¿verdad? Aquí nos estamos refiriendo. Aquí estas diapositivas vienen a ser como una explicación un poco más detallada de cómo es que se interpreta esta parte de acá. Acá no estamos hablando de que esta persona está haciendo esta acción. No, solo estamos hablando de que esta situación, el acto de comer en público, es de malos modales. También las preposiciones, ¿verdad? Dice, this is an important rule to know. You can offend people by eating in public. Verb plus ing is the form of the verb used after a preposition. Muchos estudiantes cometen el error, ¿verdad? De que después de las preposiciones no se fijan en esto. Y terminamos creando oraciones bastante feas, digámoslo así, o casi inentendibles, que es lo peor. Then, um, it's possible to use the verb to as a subject. However, in many cases, it sounds too much more formal than the gerund, and in some cases, a little old-fashioned for conversational use. To eat in public is bad manners. Puede ser que en algún libro de inglés antiguo todavía encontremos algo de esto, ¿verdad? En el que utilicen el infinitivo al principio de la oración, pero suena demasiado formal y en algunos casos, no porque ser formal sea incorrecto, sino que suena como arcaico, ¿verdad? Hay palabras o frases que uno ya no usa, ¿verdad? El inglés ha ido evolucionando y hay frases que se han quedado en el pasado y eh, no se entienden igual, ¿verdad? Las personas modernas probablemente ya no las usen y no se entiende igual la frase. So, esta es la llamada de atención. O sea, puede ser posible que lo veas. Probably maybe in an old book, maybe, I don't know, in a very old movie, but in real life, in conversational English, which is, of course, the point of you practicing with us, this is going to be very rare. The use of it as an empty subject followed by to plus verb is much more commonly used. Ah, ¿Se acuerdan que nosotros en el inglés no tenemos algo que se llame sujeto tácito, ¿verdad? El sujeto tácito en el español sabemos que es como un sujeto que se sobreentiende, ¿verdad? Y no tienes que poner, por ejemplo, él o ella o Carlos, ¿verdad? Si yo digo, ah, es mi amigo. En español se sobreentiende quién es mi amigo, ¿verdad? O sea, el mismo verbo me da la pauta para saber que estoy hablando de alguien. En el inglés no existe esa forma, ¿verdad? Y aquí lo que está pasando es que el it está llenando ese espacio que a veces nosotros en español sí dejamos. Por ejemplo, en español nosotros traducimos esta oración como es de mala educación comer en público. Es de mala educación. Pero en inglés yo no puedo empezar la oración diciendo is bad manners to eat in public. Siempre tiene que haber algo a lo que apunte, ¿verdad? Siempre tiene que haber un sujeto. Y en este caso la palabra it está tomando ese espacio, ¿verdad? Ese espacio como ese sujeto tácito que nosotros tenemos en español, en inglés no existe, por lo tanto tiene que llenarlo algo. Y en este caso es it. It is bad manners to eat in public. Por eso es que a veces notamos que muchos estudiantes eh, empiezan sus oraciones así, ¿verdad? Is bad manners, or is this, or is that, en vez de decir it is, porque venimos traduciendo del español al inglés en automático. So we have to be careful because in this portion, English and Spanish are very different. We're not able to connect those things together. So we have to be very careful with that. And final explanation, just for you to have one extra explanation. Not usually comes before the word it negates. Ya lo habíamos hablado, ¿verdad? It's acceptable not to tip. El not va en esta oración. Ahora, aquí hay una llamada de atención clara y dice, ten cuidado. Changing the position of not will often change the meaning of the sentence. Leamos de estas dos oraciones y veamos que son idénticas, solo que le cambiamos la posición al not. It's acceptable not to tip. It's not acceptable to tip. Noten que las oraciones son idénticas. O sea, pensaríamos que tendrían que tener el mismo significado si son las mismas palabras exactamente, pero la palabra not, al cambiarla de lugar, hace que las oraciones tengan significados hasta casi opuestos, ¿verdad? Por ejemplo, aquí dice, it's acceptable not to tip, es decir, es aceptable que no des propina, ¿verdad? Está bien si no das propina, pero acá dice, it's not acceptable to tip. Aquí quiere decir todo lo opuesto. No es aceptable, no está bien dar propina. Entonces, cuidado, ¿verdad? Por eso les decía, el verb y el not van juntos, solo que va antes del verb el not, ¿verdad? Por eso dice, not generally comes before the word it negates, ¿verdad? Not va antes de la palabra a la que está negando. Some of these things are going to come natural to you. I'm pretty sure that uh, some of the, yeah, sentences are going to sound natural. You were doing this exercise and some of you got really good answers. No sabíamos nada de esto y algunos de ustedes aún así obtuvieron muy buenas respuestas acá. We didn't know any about that. You were just trusting your instinct, right? How to form the sentences. Some of you guessed that the right word was cutting in line is bad manners. And then here someone standing, sorry, you might offend someone by standing or by not taking, or it's customary not to tip. So some of you were doing this correctly already. And what I want to do is to give you the tools for you to do it perfect every single time. So let's go ahead and do some exercises to try to check if you're understanding this. And if I have to explain that again, then we'll do it. So flash summary. When you have a subject and you are using a verb as a subject, you are going to opt for eating or the ing verb. Okay, that's going to be your first option. If you have a preposition like the word by or in, on, from, for, etc., those are prepositions, then you are also going to opt for the ing form of the verb. Another thing to consider, case number three, uh, when you are starting a sentence with it's, you are normally going to use the verb in infinitive. That means adding to and the verb. Okay. And remember that the position of not is important. So if you're saying that something is not, then you are going to use the word not before the verb. Be careful not to point at people, or be careful, or you can offend people by not bowing. Okay, so not comes before the verb, not in any other place of the sentence, because you might change the meaning of the sentence. Okay, those are the four cases that we studied today. Hopefully, they are kind of easy to remember. Now, you have certain sentences before we do some of the conversational part of the class. You have four initial sentences that we're going to work on, and you pretty much have the sentence all built up for you. If a friend invites you out to dinner, it's inappropriate, and then you have the verb. What do you have to do? You have to use the ing form, which is the gerund, or the infinitive form, which is to plus the verb. So you have to decide which one is better for you. Okay. So try to remember some of the rules that we just discussed. There are four different cases, and they're going to be all over here. Okay. So let's do this first attempt. I'm going to ask some questions after it, and let's see if you're able to get them right on the first try. This is 3 minutes and 32 seconds before the end. Hey, time's over. So I'm gonna post some of the sentences that you provided online, and I'm gonna ask you guys to read them for me, okay? So let's see how that goes. And we're gonna work it together if you're still confused. So let me ask Liz. Liz, can you read number one, please?
And if a friend invites you out to dinner, it is inappropriate to take another friend with you.
Perfect. So it's inappropriate to take another friend with you. Why did you decide to use to take instead of taking?
I used to take because in the sentences use iris.
Exactly. Perfect. So that's exactly the reason why we're using this, right? So we might be confused because both may sound right. So it's inappropriate taking another friend with you, or it's inappropriate to take another friend with you. So if you translate that to Spanish, we may think that both are correct, but we just studied that when you have it's at the beginning of the sentence, then you go for the infinitive form. Okay, so great job, Liz. That's exactly what I
Thank
needed.
you.
Let's go with Luisa. Luisa, can you read number two?
It's bad manners to call the restaurant if you have a reservation and you decided to cancel your plans.
Okay, sorry, can you read that again? It's bad manners, what?
It's bad manners not to call the restaurant if you have a reservation and you decided to cancel your plans
Okay, perfect. So can you explain to me why did you select not to call in that order and instead of not calling?
because the sentences beginning with it is
Okay, perfect. So
and
same case, right?
yes.
Great, great. So that's exactly right. So this is the second time that we see this happening. If the sentence has it's at the beginning and you are not sure what verb to use, well, instead of using calling, which is the gerund, the ing, you're using the infinitive, just like we did it before. And another thing is that we are respecting the order of words. Basically, when you're trying to negate something, you have to use the word not before your verb, okay? Not to call. That's the correct word. Okay, let's do another example. Let's see. Karen, can you help me with number three? Can you read number three?
Arriving a little late when you meet a big group of friends at a restaurant is acceptable. Not showing up at all is impolite,
Impolite.
impolite.
Very good, very good. So yes, when you have the subject, thank you very much, Karen. I forgot that you were feeling. Thank you for participating. Um, arriving is the right word because it's in the subject. We just said that when you are using a verb in the subject, then is not to arrive because that's too formal or maybe old-fashioned, archaic. So arriving a little late when you meet a group of friends at a restaurant, it's acceptable. Now, this one will have to follow the same logic because this is still the subject, but it's a new sentence. It's a new sentence. So not showing up. So I'm going to change this just to adapt it to the right one. Not showing, and here we have the word up. So not showing up at all is impolite. Okay, so this is the right sentence for the second part, just in case you did not get it the first time. Okay, and let's see if I have one more. Let me check here. Let me use another person's example just to do number four. So number four, it says, if you get to the restaurant before your friend, it's fine to sit down at the table. Okay, perfect. So here again, we have the same case in which the sentence, it's starting with the words it is, it's, then the word sit will have to use the infinitive form. It is fine to sit. It is fine sitting wouldn't be correct because we are using it's as part of the sentence, okay? So good job. We're going to do another round of exercises just to make sure that we are getting all right. We are going to work on exercises number 5 to 8. Number 4, you did it in the past sentence, in the past slide, so you don't have to do it again. Number 5, 6, 7, and 8 will test our knowledge a little bit more, and we'll see how that goes. So if you were not able to participate on the previous exercise, I recommend you to participate now, even though your sentences are not, all of them are not great. At least you have the opportunity to practice, and I can evaluate your answer and maybe assist you in understanding the topic better. Okay, 3 minutes. Okay, 40 seconds before we finish. Okay, let me show some of the answers, and again, I'm gonna go through some corrections. If you think it's possible, participate with me, okay? So here we have another answer. Can you help me, Liz? Do you read your answer?
It is not acceptable to complain to your server if you don't like your meal.
Okay, it's not acceptable to complain. Okay, and again, same case, right? We are using to complain instead of complaining because the sentence starts with it's. Okay, good job. Let's do another one. Let's see. For. Okay, for is a preposition. And I'm gonna ask you, Oscar, to help me with this one. Okay, so for is a preposition. Con los gerundios vimos dos, ¿verdad? Vimos verbs plus ing when they are in the subject, and verbs with ing when they are after prepositions. So in this case, the word for is a preposition. How would you finish this sentence knowing that this verb has to have ing? Can you read the sentence?
People might be upset with you for not to pay.
No. Verbs by ing, not to. Not
For paying.
not paying, correct.
For not paying your fair share of the bill.
Perfect. Very good. So people might be upset with you for not paying. And why am I using paying? Okay, I have to use not, porque ya me dijeron ahí, ¿verdad? Que va el not. Pero ¿por qué estoy usando paying? Why am I using paying? Because if I have a preposition, after preposition I have to use the verb ing. Entonces, si yo pongo aquí y digo not to pay, okay, en español me puede sonar igual, pero en inglés dice si son after prepositions, for, in, on, out, at, esas son prepositions. Si vienen después de prepositions, me voy por el verbo ing. That's the way that I know that I can use it correctly. So people might be upset with you for not paying your fair share in the bill. Esto dice, las personas pueden molestarse contigo si tú no pagas tu parte apropiada de la cuenta. Es decir, somos tres, pues pagamos, qué sé yo, la cuenta en tres, ¿verdad? Pero si somos tres y yo solo pongo 10 quetzales, por ejemplo, entonces that's not your share fair, right? So, Oscar, I don't know if this is more clear now, or clearer, I would say. ¿Está un poquito más claro de cuándo usar el ing en los verbos?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, very good. Entonces tenemos dos casos. We have two cases in which we use ing normally. When they are in the subject and when they are after prepositions. When the sentence is starting with it's, then you use the infinitive. To plus the verb, okay? So esa es la razón por la que la primera en este caso, en esta de aquí, estaría mala, ¿verdad? Entonces, it's not acceptable complaining. No, porque empieza con it's. Entonces, si empieza con it's, entonces es to más el verb. It's not acceptable to complain to your server if you don't like your meal. So that's the way. The more that we practice, the more that we're going to be able to take care of more difficult exercises. So let's do number 7. Luisa, can you do number 7?
Okay. Talking with your mouth full is considered rude. Taking phone calls during dinner is also bad manners.
Okay. Can you let me know why you decided to use talking in gerund and taking in gerund as well?
Because I remember that in the beginning of the sentences, we have to use the verb with ing.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So that's what we just mentioned when we talked about the cases, right? Good job, Luisa. So here, if we have the verb in the subject, like in this case, talking, right? So we don't say to talk with your mouth full. We use talking because it's in the subject, right? Talking with your mouth full is considered rude. Taking phone calls during dinner is also bad manners. So we're doing this over and over and over just to make sure that we are understanding this part. And let's see if I can do the next one. Friseida, can you help me with number 8?
You can offer the server by not leaving a tip, but giving a smaller tip is fine if the service is bad.
Okay, very good. So let's talk about this one, not leaving. Why did you use leaving here as as a gerund? Aquí estás usando el gerundio, a gerund, right? Why? Why is that? ¿Por qué no usaste el to leave? O sea, la tienes correcta. I just want to know why. Puede ser también el caso que a veces no sepamos por qué, pero ahí simplemente algo nos suena como que podría ser la forma correcta and maybe we're not completely aware of it. But in this case, do you know why, Friseida, you're using the word leaving with ing? If not, I can explain and I can help you, but I just wanted to know if you know.
Pues no sé si estoy bien, pero because it is used when expressing an intention of purpose.
Ujú. Okay. The simplest way, lo más simple es porque hay una preposición. There is a preposition. So we have the preposition by. When we have a preposition, after prepositions, we use the ing. As simple as that. Entonces, aquí puede haber muchas razones, pero la más sencilla es que si hay una preposición, the next verb, in this case it was negative, right? So not leaving is perfect. So you can offend the server by not leaving a tip. So that's perfectly fine. The second one happens something on the second one we have something similar. But giving a smaller tip is fine for the service. En este caso, este es el sujeto. Entonces, si tengo la palabra give y give está en el sujeto, entonces siempre es ing. Aquí están los dos casos que vimos de cuándo usar ing. Usamos ing after prepositions. By is a preposition, es por eso que esa es la forma correcta de expresarlo. Y en la segunda oración después del punto, por eso sé que esta es una oración independiente, tenemos en el sujeto el verbo give. Entonces la forma correcta de usarla en el sujeto es con el ing. Giving a smaller tip is fine if the service is. So these are the types of explanations that I wanted to provide to you for this topic specifically. So we have some more conversation exercises. What we're gonna do them tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow we're gonna be orienting our class more towards practicing a little bit speaking and reading. So these are some of the things that we're gonna do tomorrow. What etiquette advice can you give of the following situations? Can you think of the following situations? Etiquette es reglas de etiqueta. Okay. So we have a couple of ideas, and I want your opinions based on this etiquette pieces of advice. And we have different conversational topics, and this is going to be about texting etiquette. Mensajear, ¿verdad? A ver si ¿será que hay ética a la hora de mensajear? Etiqueta, perdón, a la hora de mensajear. Yo creo que sí. I think that there is some etiquette. There are certain things that are acceptable when you're texting with some people, and there are moments and situations where there are certain things that are not acceptable. So that's going to be the topic for tomorrow. We'll probably do more exercises around along those lines. But for now, I think this is all that I have for you, and of course, our time is over. So I appreciate you following up, practicing with me, participating with me. That's going to be wonderful if you can do that tomorrow. And for those who are feeling like a little sick today. I hope that tomorrow is a better day as well. I wish you the very best. Have some rest for the rest of the evening, and I'll see you at 7:30 tomorrow.
Bye.
Thanks,
Sorry, we made
teacher.
it.
Bye.
Bye bye.